Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back after some minor technical issues there, and I do apologise for those. We will need to look into those in the build-up to the season. We do seem to have some recurring technical issues tonight, but we should now be back on all three media platforms, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or alternatively Twitch, and we are building up now for the sprint race. As we can see, it's going to be Enio Baba who takes us away at the front of this rolling start field. The rolling start starting in the second half of the lap here, and we wait for the Porsche driver to take us away for what is going to be 15 minutes of sprint racing. It'll be close, it'll be tight, and everyone will be getting used to racing against one another in what is a rather relatively simple set of conditions here, as they all will now make their way out of Junção, and it will be the case that they will creep up towards the hill, and we wait for Baba to take us away. And it's lights out and away we go for the sprint race. It looks like Baba's had a very slow start as they make their way down towards turn number one. Here we see Caruana trying to go for the Moses manoeuvre between the two leaders as they come into the braking zone for one. He's able to take out what is Landry, but he's not able to make it all the way around the outside of Baba as they make their way through the centre S's here, and everybody comes roaring down the hill here. And as they all make their way down, we can see that our race leaders making the breakaway. As further back, we can see that Beck making his way past what is Vessels there as they come roaring down towards turn at number 4, make their way down as rapidly as they possibly can. As we look back to the pictures here, and we can see there's been a spin further back, as I think that's Sam Holman who's been involved in a major incident as they all come through turn 4 and head down towards turn number 5 right now. You have to see that it's Paul Hennessy battling away here with Jean-Louis Deschamps as the Delta Motorsport driver going side by side with Hennessy in the run up towards turn number 7, and as they come into 7, it will be the case that he's going to have to back out of it here. There's no way through in the complex of 6 and 7. Up into 8 they come under braking. The Mercedes AMG very heavy on the brakes by comparison with its fellow German counterpart, the Porsche, there, as they make their way through 8 and now head down through 9 and up into 10. Further back we can see that Ed Lack here battling side by side with what is Vessels, and Vessels trying to go all the way around the outside into turn number 10. He's not going to find it immediately here, but he's going to try and hang his nose in into 11, but instead he has to think about going defensive now, as we can see that Lovesley trying to get the move on there as they make their way out of the corner. But meanwhile, as they come up in towards Junção corner, we can see that it's the case that Lovesley tries to send it on the inside, not able to find the space, but as they all make their way out the hill now, Lovesley's going to be very vulnerable to the drivers behind, and you can see it immediately going on the offensive here. But after one lap of racing, we can see that it's Enio Baba right now who is still leading by only a tenth of a second here versus Matt Caruana. Caruana trying to go for the move on the outside into turn 1, going through the centre S's. He'll try and go for that move, but he's not going to find it. He looks at the cutback, but Baba's able to park it on Apex here. But you have to imagine Caruana's going to be looking very strong in the run down the Reproposta. Behind it's Tony Verschaft, who's then got Jason Landry behind him, followed by Robert de Sunik. Then we have Neil Butler in P6, who's falling away from the top 5, and then we do have Lucas Romano here, who's further down, followed by Jean-Louis Deschamps, and then we have Anthony Beck, who's in P9, followed by Ed Lack in P10. But as they all make their way around, we can see that Landry here battling with what is Tony Verschaft, and the two of them going toe-to-toe as they make their way out of turn 4 and 5, and we can see it side by side now, as you've got Verschaft on the outside, the Canadian on the inside, as they come into the braking zone for turn 6. Landry's not going to give way here, he's going to try and hold it, but Verschaft has something to say about it, I'm sure, as we can see there, Robert de Sunik is trying to get in, and under braking they go into turn number 8 here, and it does look as though there that Landry's gone a bit deep on the brakes. I'm not sure if there was contact. It didn't look like contact on our screen, but I'm not sure if there was a bit of a latency spike there, but it's definitely the case that Landry has lost out, and now Neil Butler is going to be looking to go full send on the Ferrari driver as he makes his way through turn number 8 here, but he's not able to find it for the time being, as he has to back off for a brief while, as we did have that major incident earlier on, what happened on the opening lap onto Reproposta. So this was Sam Holman as he made his way coming out to turn number 3 here, and we're going to see a car get, oh goodness me, and a Holman there in contact with one of the Ignium Motorsport drivers, and everyone parting the seas, and it was a case, it was a big big instance. We see multiple cars. Oh my goodness. And that's the Ferrari there. I think that's Gamborg Rasmussen who took flight as they made their way around. And that was a disaster as Rasmussen, well, I think he's been tip-topped and turned every which way. But it has been a disastrous start for a good number of drivers. And that's why we've seen multiple drivers drop all the way down the order. But as we now return to the live pictures right now, I can tell you that there were a good number of drivers involved in there. I think we had Tom Delaney was involved in that major incident. We had pretty much everybody involved in it. You name it, they were in that instant. As we now look back to the pictures here, and we can see Lambert Wedder in P26 just coming out the pits right now, and he does have, I think that is the Porsche there coming around him. That's a lap up. I'm trying to tell that is Hunter, and it is also the case he's got Dirk Bouts who's trying to come on through right now as Wedder rejoins a lap down on the rest of the field. But meanwhile, as they make their way on through, we now look further up the field, and we can see that it's Jochen Seeger who right now, well, he's making his way through turn number 6 here. We do see a car backing off. I'm not sure who that is backing off a little bit further behind. I think it may be Janssen who's a lap down, but what we can see here is that Seeger here, the Yam driver, is taking the fight to Ben Hicks early on, trying to make something work there, the Jägermeister machine, as they make their way through turn number 9 and head up into 10. Into the second of the two hairpins in sequence they go, and as they make their way, and you can see behind there, McDougall trying to find a way through the 6R Project Black driver, really trying to get a move and trying to hurry Seeger up, trying to get him to make some pace, to try and make some moves. They make their way up and towards turn number 12. There's no way through at the moment as we see the BMW train chases after the Ferrari there of Hicks as they make their way up the hill. Meanwhile, for the lead right now, they've been like this for a couple of laps. They're going to go on to the third lap, and the fourth lap, and it's Matt Caruana who goes to the move on the inside this time into turn 1. But is Baba going to be able to hold it to the inside for the Center S? He does, as they show one other great race of respect and room. But it looks so Caruana they're able to get the run out of turn number 3. A good pass, and as a result, now Caruana up into lead. But will Baba come back? I suspect he probably won't be able to, not because he doesn't want to, but because that Porsche just does not have the grunt on the straights compared to the Lamborghini Huracan ahead of him. Behind him, meanwhile, Tony Verschaft having made the move earlier on. We can see that Robert De Sunik has also found his way past Landry, and as they make their way through turns 4 and 5 right now, it is that case. They're going to be continuing to push on, as we are hearing that Jochen Seeger has found his way past Ben Hicks as he makes his way now through turn 4 and up into 5. How did that happen, you ask? Well, let's take a look back and see. So this is in the run down towards turn 1, and we can see Seeger here, the NXTGEN Racing orange driver, having a good move on the inside here and just simply deciding, you know what, I've had enough of waiting mine. I've got the overspeed versus the Ferrari, and as he made his way for the Center S's there, we can see how effective Ben Hicks really losing a lot of momentum as they made their way down. Now, I do not think there was an attempt at a move by the 6R Project Black driver down into what was turn number 4 coming down the Ref Posta. He did look for it, did McDougall, but he wasn't able to find it, and as a result, had to back off completely as they came through. As we now return to the live pictures here, and you can see they still are as they were previously, but meanwhile our race leaders, as they make their way through turn number 13 and up in towards 14 and 15 they go. We can see that Baba here really close, and you've got such a long straight in order to be able to capitalise, and Caruana goes defensive immediately coming out of 15 and then pulls back onto the racing line here, making sure that Baba does not gain as much tow as he would like. Meanwhile, further back we can see that Verschaft here having to hold off to Sunik and also Landry. And Sunik going defensive into 1 there as Landry tried to go all the way around the houses but couldn't find a way as they make their way down through turn number 3. And behind them, I can tell you that we do have Jean-Louis Deschamps right now, who in P8 is chasing after Romano, but Romano still holding firm as Beck is also behind these guys as they make their way down the Ref Posta once again. They head up towards turn number 4. Further back, I can tell you that as this is carrying on, we do have Andrew Lovesey who's looking for the potential move here versus Vessels as they make their way up into turn number 4. They come into the braking zone here. Vessels going to deal with the Ferrari on his inside. It's going to be door to door, and as they make their way through, they just about missed the contact there, but I do think the Vessels had to open the steering wheel a little bit to avoid the contact as they make their way up the hill now through turn number 6, and it is looking smooth sailing right now for both drivers as they come rip-roaring through the right-hander here of turn number 7 and up into 8, and as they come into that braking zone, Lovesey has got a move done, and he now looks to go after Ed Lack ahead of him. As we are hearing, there has been an incident involving Don Hunter, and also I think Mark Sykes has had a moment. We'll take a look back at that very shortly, but further down the field, you have to say that Gus Franken, meanwhile, is battling here with what is Holman as they make their way down towards turn 4, and it's going to be a case Ferrari versus Porsche here, and the Ferrari's not able to find a way through for the time being, but I think he will try to cut back, will the Pro-Am driver, as they make their way through 5 and up towards 6 and 7 here as they come charging up the hill. Will he be able to go for the move, or will he not be able to? It will be the case. We'll have to wait out and find and see what happens very shortly as they make their way through the right-hander here of turn number 7 and head up into 8. No way through at this time, it looks like, for Franken, as he just has to wait patiently for that potential move. Although it does look as though they're Holman struggling on the apex of 9 as they come up into 10. Now, meanwhile, as these guys are battling, we can see here, meanwhile, it's the case that it's Hicks versus what is Vessels here, and as they make the way, no, it's not Hicks versus Vessels, I should say, it is instead Hicks versus Seeger here, and Seeger not falling away right now. Instead, he's falling back as he was able to get through a minute ago, but now it's the case that Hicks has come back at him as they make the way in the rundown of Reparaposta here on what is lap number 6, and we can see here behind how it's the case McDougall also trying to find a way on through, but not able to is the Briton, as it looks as though Seeger's had a bit of a moment there on the apex before. He's not been able to get the car to steady, and as a result he's lost a lot of momentum here, and he's going to lose the attempt at a position. He's going to have to lose another place as we see McDougall makes the way on the inside here, and as they come through the right hander of 6 and 7, it does look as though McDougall's got the move done and is now up into P14. We'll see it come back at him. That is the big question. As meanwhile, further down the order, I can tell you that Matthew Addy has fallen down as well, but let's take a look at what happened to Don Hunter only moments ago. So this was in the battle earlier on for what was a position much further down the order compared to what we were looking at. And as Hunter came through turn 2, the rear end completely gave way and into the wall there for Hunter. And meanwhile, what happened to Mark Sykes? This is a moment ago in Junkao, and as he came through the left-hander there, simply run wide onto the grass, and there's no way back once you go wide other than to clip the wall and park the car up. So Mark Sykes there having a moment and jumping to the pits, and a good number of drivers not having a good day at the office so far. But speaking of good days at the office, Caruana right now will feel as though he's proceeding as he continues. He's continued to proceed as he planned to lead come season 1's ending, whereby he won the race at Spa, of course, and he won in quite a dominant fashion in the end. And now he is looking to try and hold on to the win here, but it looks though Baba's got something to say about it as they make their way through turn number 4 and coming through 5 very shortly as they come roaring through the double left, and as they come up the hill here towards turn number 6, you have to imagine that Baba is really putting the Huracan driver through his paces here as they come through the double right complex and head up into turn number 8, and as they come roaring through at this point, heavy under braking they go here. It's going to be no change at this point. And meanwhile, further back, I can tell you that Jean-Louis Deschamps meanwhile still chasing after what is Romano here. Can't seem to find a way on through, and further back I'm hearing that it's the case that Andrew Lovesey has gained 2 places for the price of 1, is continuing to gain places. That looks to be Ed Lack there, who's going quite slow through turn number 9, and this is in the battle for P10. Now, what happened only moments ago? Let's take a look. So this was Lovesey here. Lack versus Vessels was battling, and as they made the way out of turn number 4 and 5, you could see it was the case. It was just a simple situation where Lovesey tried to go all the way round there to make it a 2-for-1 special, but in the end he had to back off and just try and contain the pressure from Vessels as they made the way through the corner. But it does look as though Lack is struggling with that Lamborghini Huracan as they make their way through turns 14 and into 15, and we can see there Lack having to do a little bit of weaving on the straight in order to try and break the slipstream as they make the way down towards turn number 1 here. And of course Lack allowed to do that as long as it's not too aggressive, and you see Lack defending hard into 1 here. He's trying to get Lovesey to go back because we see a car spun there on the apex of turn 1. I think that's the Shaft. The Shaft has had a moment and gone off circuit and dropped all the way down the order, releasing Laundry and Butler up the field. But we can see that right now as they make their way roaring up towards what is turn number 4, what happened to Tony Verschaft? Well, the car just simply went by looks of things for the Dutchman. We couldn't quite see the whole instant, but it just looks like the number 6 car has decided it doesn't want to rotate through the centre S's anymore in his capable hands, as we see here that he's returned to the circuit, albeit we're seeing that off camera. But meanwhile, further back, we can see in this battle between Lovesey and Lack right now as we ride on board here with Lovesey. He's going to go for the move into turn 8, and Lack goes very deep here, and as they make their way out of the corner, he's going to have to try and go around the outside. But look at Vessels. He's trying to find a way back on through here, and he's been rather opportunistic as they try to come together through turn 10, and as they make the way in here, you can see what Vessels is doing. He's taking as wide a line as possible. He's hoping that Lovesey and Lack will battle into the apex of the corner and make one another go wide, and it's a case that Vessels can just simply cut up the inside, and with only 2.5 minutes to go as they come through Junkao corner at turn 12 right now, you have to imagine as well that Ben Hicks, who's a little bit further back, he's in P12 right now. He'd love to get into this battle as we've got quite the train of cars making their way onto the start-finish straight right now as they all come roaring through turn 12 and into 13 and 14 and into 15, and as they come roaring down towards the timing line right now, we can see that once again Lack having to try and pick his defensive position, but we can see that this time Lovesey goes to the move on the inside. He goes for a huge lunge. It knocks Lack wide, and as a result Lack loses the places to Vessels. But I think in the end Lovesey was going to have to do something there to get the move to happen, as we've got a car wayward there on turn 3. I think that's Lucas Romano who's dropped down the field as everybody runs wide there to accommodate, straight, and we'll see that Vessels is taking no time to go on the offensive here versus Lovesey as they make the way into 4, but as they come to the end of the Reproposta, we can see Lovesey is able to hold the position but goes deep. Meanwhile, Vessels goes to the inside here as they come roaring through turn number 5, and remember, this is only pre-season testing, but it's their race as if it's the championship already, and as they make the way through turn number 6 right now, Vessels is going to hold the outside line here through 6 and 7. Can he make it work? He goes a little bit wide, and under braking, he's still there on the outside as Lax just has to watch on behind. They come through turn number 8 now, 9, and you can see that Vessels has kept his foot in it and held the position. He's made Lovesey go deep out of 9, and look at Lack, who's now trying to make the move on the inside into 10. This is fantastic stuff, as they've still got one more lap to go after this, but you have to imagine it's Vessels who's really trying to make a statement. Look, I may be in the AM class, but I'm no slouch, and as they make their way through turn at number 12, now Vessels has got to hold off this charging pack. As meanwhile, in the battle for leaders, the white flag is out. It's the final lap. We can see that Baba going on the inside versus Caruana. And it looks as though Baba's got the move done here, but Caruana will play this one smart. He'll know to wait. He'll wait for the opportunity. He won't do anything silly. As they make their way through turn number 3 here and head down towards turn 4, we can see it's the case that Caruana now will be looking to try and make the late move here into 4 as they come down the Reproposta straight, and we can see that Baba simply cutting as much as he can into the middle, but Caruana tries to cut back on the inside here as they make their way through the left-handers of 4 and 5, and as they come up the hill right now, can Caruana find a way through? That's the big question as they come charging up towards 6 and 7. Well, I don't think he's going to be able to do it right now. I think what Caruana may do, he may decide to wait for it coming out of Junkow in the drag race to the timing line, but of course he's got a long way to go and he's going to have to make sure he's this close coming out of Junkow on the throttle earlier than the Porsche ahead of him. And whilst that Porsche may not be strong on the straights, one thing it does have over the Huracan is the ability to get the power down as early as possible coming out the corners, as we see Baba there sliding into turn 10, going full offensive lock into the hairpin as they make their way down for 11 right now. This battle for the lead could not be closer, and as they come roaring out of turn 11 into 12, I do think it's going to be the case that as both drivers make their way through, it is going to be very close as they come out of the corner. It's now the long run to the checkered flag. Which one of them is going to take the checkered flag in this pre-season race? We can see they both make their way through 13 through 14. I think Baba's going to do it as they make their way through the final corner here, and as they proceed on to the start-finish straight, it will be Enio Baba who takes the win by the smallest of margins ahead of Matt Caruana, and it's Jason Landry who finishes in P3 ahead of Neil Butler, and then Jean-Louis Deschamps picks up P5 in the end ahead of Anthony Beck, and then we've got Robert de Sunic there in P7 coming across the line, and Stefan Vessels holds off was Andrew Lovesey, Ed Lack, Peter McDougall and Ben Hicks and Jochen Seeger in the end for P8, and in behind them we've got Tony Verschaft in P14 followed by Lucas Romano who's going to come home in P15 as he makes his way into the start finish line right now and completes his race. And then to complete our top 20 we do have Peter Lemkins who makes his way across the line holding off Dirk Boutz, and Dirk Boutz there in the Audi R8. We've got Paul Hennessy who's going to come home in P18 after a strong start, falling down the order to a degree as we see the Mercedes driver here completing his race in P18. And then we'll have Sam Holman, who it does look as though coming out of what is Junkow corner. I think there's been a bit of an incident between multiple drivers as they've made their way out of turn number 12, but we can see here Stephen Holman coming across the line very shortly, we believe in P19, although he does have Franken there. I think it's going to take him on the line, although it is the case yet Franken just pips him to P19, Stephen Holman P20, Matt Emmons P21, and that completes all of our order who finished on the lead lap. Brilliant race in there, ladies and gentlemen, but now we will wait to hear from some of our drivers in the build-up to what is the feature race. We'll see if we can get some of those post-race interviews. You won't want to miss them. Post-race interviews coming right up. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, but not without a word from our principal sponsor, Apex Racing Academy, of course, the place to go for all things to do with iRacing with regards to not just setups, but also helping you get better. And that's apexracingac.com if you want to know more. But now, whilst we have 4 minutes to go before we're due to get underway with the second of our 2 practice races tonight, or our test races if you will, being at the Interlagos circuit, it will be the 60-minute feature race, of course, with that one single pit stop. All of our drivers must take on the fuel to get to the end of the race. Whether they choose to take on tyres or not, that's an entirely different question. But right now, all of our drivers just making their way around the circuit as we see Stefan Gabriel Rasmussen there, the Danishman, making his way up the hill, and this time hoping to keep the car on terra firma, i.e. on the ground, after doing a little bit of a theatrical set of some sorts in that major incident we saw on the opening lap running down the Repro Posta here. And Rasmussen, I've heard, has even commented on it, saying with regards to does he get points for style in terms of launching the car through the air. Well, I definitely think we could give him some style points for that, although unfortunately those what would be style points will not count for anything in the championship at a later point. But as all of our drivers are taking it back to the circuit right now and getting themselves set up, I have been able to tell you that whilst we were not able to bring you those post-race interviews, and unfortunately it's unlikely we will be bringing you post-race interviews after the races for all 3 of our test events, for the simple reason that we do have a mishmash of drivers within their respective classes for Lobby 1 and Lobby 2, and it would not be providential essentially to bring those post-race interviews. We will be looking to bring you some potential mid-race interviews or pre-race interviews in the build-up to each of the pre-season races, plus some slight changes to the approach to our broadcast as time goes on. We'll be experimenting with some new features, keep an eye out for those, but most importantly I can tell you that we have mostly updated our data sheets now with regards to who's in which class. So as a result now we will be able to give you that comparator in terms of how our Pro-Ams versus our Ams versus our Pros are doing, and that should help out quite significantly. But as everyone's getting in their laps right now, we can see Jason Landry continuing to put in a stellar amount of lap time at the moment, and we've also got the teams listed as well. As we see Landry there, the privateer, making his way through turn number 14 and down towards turn 15. And as we can see there, that we do have Matt Emmons, who is talking about being interviewed. He'd be happy to be interviewed, and definitely we'll grab you for an interview at some point, Matt. We can definitely do that in the Facebook chat, and we can see Billy Fletcher Racing and the Twitch chat saying, I was about to say I'd love to still do an in-race interview, and it is definitely something we are going to be looking to do. We'll be bringing you that more interactivity over the course of the next couple of pre-season tests. As I say, it's one of those situations at the moment where we seem to have been blighted with a number of technical issues tonight, particularly that loss of connectivity in the build-up to race number 1, which we do apologise for, but we are investigating those issues as we go. As all our drivers right now are building up, so it's not so. It is the case we're now only at 1.5 minutes, if not less, away from going racing once again. And indeed, it could not be more intense. And to be fair, on his debut, and now he's switched from the Ferrari from the Ferrari to the Lamborghini, it is the case that the South African Stefan Vessel's really shown a lot of gumption, a lot of fighting spirit. And to be fair, whilst it's only the pre-season test event number 1 right now, you have to say with a performance like that, battling with the likes of Andrew Lovesey and Ed Lack, you can imagine that the South African in the AM class is really going to upset the balance of the AM class going into the main season. But I'm sure plenty of other drivers in the AM class would love to take a fight to the South African. So as a result, I don't think he's going to have it all his own way, but unfortunately, hearing down in the paddock that he picked the wrong car to enter into the race lobby, he picked the Lamborghini Huracan when he was meant to pick the Ferrari. So now he's going to have to get used to driving the Lamborghini Huracan for an hour of Interlagos. It'll be a good learning experience for the man who is a complete rookie to iRacing, essentially taking his first steps in iRacing as of tonight. But without further ado, it is the case that we are now only about 10 seconds away from getting the flip over to the race itself. As we can see there, KT say just blame the weather for the connection issues in the Facebook chat, and Matt Emmons saying, and I'll be with you next week. Well, I was going to surprise everyone, Matt, but indeed we will have Matt Emmons joining me in the commentary box for next week's races, and we'll tell you a little bit more about next week's races and what to expect in the short while. But with that, we are now making our way over to the feature race. So without further ado, we start to prepare the grid. It will be the reverse grid there, and that's no problem at all, Matt. I know you're a little excited about it, as am I, but we now make our way over to the formation of the grid for the feature race, and let's take you through that grid. or at least the top 6 rows. It'll be Tony Verschaft who starts on pole with Robert Sunik alongside him, and then it'll be Anthony Beck and Jean-Louis Deschamps in P3 and P4. Jason Landry and Matt Caruana, P5 and P6, Enino Baba and what is Jacko Boshoff there in P7, and then we have Lamet Vedder and James Slets in P9 and P10, and then completing our 6th row there, Rick M. Janssen and Gus Franken. I do believe this grid may not be completely set as perhaps expected, so it may be the case that there's been a little bit of an issue there. We were expecting perhaps a full potential reverse grid, but we will have to look at that as we now get ready to go racing. Of course, Interlagos here, and the track temperature is quite a bit higher than what is at 22 degrees. It is the case it's 25 degrees out on track, but right now, as we get all of that information out of the way for you on the screen, it is the case our drivers are now getting ready to go racing for an hour here as they all start to pull off the line. It is the case we've only got 23 drivers coming back for what is the feature race here, but I'm sure they will make most of it and do everything they can in order to enjoy this one and use all the data they can get in order to influence their car choices going into the second test event in a week's time, if not that final car selection. But we will see here it's going to be Tony Verschaft and Robert Sunik who will take us away as they make the way. It'll be Tony Verschaft in particular as they make the way through turn number 11 and heading down towards turn 12. In fact, they're not quite there yet. They're still making their way up towards turn number 10 right now, but it will be the case the BMW driver will go toe-to-toe with his good old teammate, of course, and you can imagine sparks are going to fly between BMW and Lamborghini Huracan. And further back, of course, we have the big question of Matthew Addy here, who, after having that disastrous moment in the opening race, the major incident which we didn't quite see on screen, how will he do now at the head of the AMPAC? But here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, as all of our drivers make their way out of Junção, they'll now make their way up the hill and get ready to go racing for the green, and it will be Tony Verschaft who takes us away as they all start to make their way up the hill. And it's lights out and away we go as we can see that Tony Verschaft has gone quite early in the run down towards turn 15 and that start-finish line, and he's needed to get that early start because he's made Robert Sunik bogged down as we see Anthony Beck here going for the move on the inside into turn 1, trying to go early but no prevail as we can see behind Matt Caruana trying to sweep all the way around the outside there, holding off Jason Landry, but at the same time trying to go for the move on Beck. And then further down we can see here as they all come roaring through the curve there, we can see through turn 3 it's the case that Jacko Boshoff making some ground, taking at Lamet Vedder already, and further behind we've got Janssen there battling with Jamie Slates as they come down the Repro Posta here towards turn 1. But meanwhile right up front you can see here Jason Landry side by side with Matt Caruana. They go through turn 4 and Landry coming back at the Huracan driver here, not letting Caruana have it all his own way as they make their way up the hill now towards turn 6 and 7. And as they come into the double right-hander here, you can see they formed into a line as they make their way on through it. And meanwhile further back Gus Franken here having to literally break away as Jamie Slates holds the rest of the field up here and buys Gus Franken a little bit of time, a bit of breathing room as they come into that heavy braking zone for turn at number 8. And as they come through the corner here, Lovesey going for the move on the inside versus Ben Hicks, and then tapping the back of Slates, who's taking a bit of time to get up to speed here as they all make their way through turns at number 9 and up into 10. And as they come into the break, oh goodness me, we've got a car sideways there, and in fact we've had a major incident. That's a BMW that's had a major moment there, and that's Rick Janssen who's gone off circuit. And let's take a look back at what happened very shortly, but before we do, we can see that right now our leaders making their way out of Junção and up the hill once again here. And as they come to the end of the first lap, it's a long run all the way down towards turn 1. You can see that Tony Verschaft has done exactly what he needed to do at the start of the race, which is cause the field to fall back behind him and make the break, and he's 6 tenths here as he comes across the timeline to go into lap number 2. So Tony Verschaft leads, followed by Robert Sunik here, who's going to go defensive versus Beck. Laundry goes on the inside, and as they make their way through the corners here, you can see it's Laundry trying to go all the way around the outside here through turn 2 and into 3, and as he comes through 3 he's got the inside line, and Matt Caruana is going to try and come through with him, and you can see Caruana Carana here. He's got the best of both worlds. He's got the double toe, plus also he's got the move. But we can see Lungi going to the inside here into turn 4 and squeezing Carana to the outside here as Carana tries to find a way round. He can't find it. He's going to look for the cutback here as they make the way out of turn 4 and head for into 5. And as they come roaring through the left-hander here, it's a simple instance whereby nobody's able to really gain out of it that much. But Lungi definitely has gained by comparison, with Beck losing 2 places. And as they make the way through 6 and 7 up into 8 right now, Carana getting a little bit impatient. I think wants to get the move on and not let Dasunik and Vashaf pull away off into the distance. But meanwhile, Jean-Louis Deschamps there in P6. Then we've got Enio Baba in P7, Jakob Boschhoff in P8, the first of our Pro-Am drivers here. And then we've got Lambert Wedder in P9, followed by Andrew Lovesey in P10 here, followed by Gus Franken in P11, Ben Hicks P12, Phil McDougall P13. Then we've got Jamie Slates in P14, and then we see Ed Lack behind here in P15, followed by Matthew Addy. And then we're at the head of the AM class there, we've got Lucas Romano in the Pro-Am, and then behind we've got Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen, followed by Jochen Seeger, and then we have Andy Wormsey, who's a little bit further back here with Rick Janssen, Matt Emmons, and then last but not least Stefan Vessels. But what happens to Rick Janssen is the question. Let's find out. So this was on the opening lap, coming out of turn 9 here, up into turn 10. He didn't have anybody right behind him, and the rear went on the exit of 9. And then as he went back onto the circuit, the car completely gave way. And goodness me, he was very fortunate there to miss taking another driver with him. The other drivers reacting very well, but Janssen having a major moment there and being caught out by the car as we continue to go racing. And as our drivers make their way on down, meanwhile, we do look a little bit further up the field, and we can see Ed Lack here under major pressure from Matthew Addy and Romano as they make their way around. It's going to be 3 wide onto the Reproposta straight here, and as they come roaring down towards turn number 4, heavy on the brakes, it is 3 wide, and as we can see there, it looks like Romano's trying to go for the double move, and Addy goes between the 2 drivers here, goes to the Moses manoeuvre, gets it done. Romano sends Lack a little bit wide off the corner, a tiny little tap, but they all make it through unscathed, and it does mean that Lack's lost 2 places. Behind, meanwhile, is the Jägermeister machine versus the proud Italian stallion, the Ferrari, as they make the way for the right-hander of 6 into 7, and you can see that Siegert's going to try and hold it all the way around the outside here. I think this is very brave if he's going to try and do it under braking. He is going to go for it, but he's not able to make it around the outside. Instead has to fall back a position, as we are hearing that Enio Baba has moved up into P6 with Jean-Louis Deschamps moved down to P7. But you have to say that right now it is the case that Rasmussen trying to make amends for what was a rather dire start to his sprint race as they come out of turn 10 and head into 11. Now as they make the way all the way down the hill towards Juncal Corner, once again we look a little bit further up the road, and I am actually hearing that Stefan Vessels is not having a good time in the Lamborghini. What's happened? Stefan Vessels here, he's last of our runners right now, and it does look as though he comes out of turn 9 there and makes his way up towards turn number 10. Did we see anything? Oh, the rear end just completely snapped on him, and I think he's not quite used to that Lamborghini. It's catching him out to a degree, as meanwhile we go racing once again here, and we see Janssen who's making his way all the way down. I think we're looking for Rick Janssen right now, and in fact he's side by side here. Well, and Wormsey, we couldn't quite see, Andrew Wolves, as they make their way into the corner, and as they make their way into turn 1, it is the case that Janssen makes the move on the inside here and gains the place, as meanwhile Lack versus what is Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen here. Lack falling backwards here down the order, and we can see now is the case the 2 AM drivers taking the fight to the Pro Am drivers. They make their way down towards turn number 4. Rasmussen's going to try and go around the outside of the CXR Project Black driver, but will he be able to get it done? That's the big question as they make their way through. I think it's not going to be to his prevail right now, as we see Jochen Seeger there coming on the inside. There's a little bit of side-to-side contact as the German tries to go round the outside there, and as they make their way into 6 and 7, it's a repeat of the last lap, but you add in the fact that you've got a Lamborghini Huracan at Edis Patters. You can see it loses the rear end of the car through 6, and as a result now has to try and get the car back onto circuit gradually there, but that will have taken a lot of life out of the rear tyres in particular and just pushing it a bit too far, it would seem. As meanwhile further up the road we can see that Matthew Addy making the move there for P15, our class leader right now in the AM class, as they make their way for 11. But oh, goodness me, there is the case. Romano coming in a bit too aggressive into 11 and trying to go for a move that I don't think was going to be on. Both drivers being collected, and they go racing once again. But you can see definitely some damage to Addy's car on that front left-hand side as they rejoin. Meanwhile, all the way at the front, not to forget our race leaders, it's Tony Vashaf right now, leading by 1.1 seconds ahead of Robert Dasunik, who in himself has got a 4/10 of a second gap over Matt Caruana as they come roaring down the hill through the centre S's for what is now the 5th time of asking. And as they make their way through, we can see it's the case that right now Dasunik just simply holding his ground, as Lambert Wedder, I think, has had a major moment. We're hearing moments from a good number of drivers. Ben Hicks as well. Where's this all kicking off? That's the big question. We can see Ben Hicks there, the Ignium Motorsport Ferrari. And as he makes his way out to turn 3 and down towards 4, we can see behind Jamie Slates here trying to look for the move as they make their way all the way down, or James Slates as we should say, and as they come down into the braking zone here for turn number 4, not able to find his way on through, and as they come through the corner right now, you imagine that Ben Hicks is feeling quite a bit of pressure from the pro behind him as they come roaring out of the corner and up the hill towards turn 6 and 7 once again. But whilst these guys are battling further down the order, further up the order, we do have Anthony Beck here who's trying to chase after what is Jason Landry, and as they make the way out of turn number 9 and up into 10, we can see the BMW driver right now just simply holding his ground as he makes his way through the right-hander there and comes into the left-hander of turn 11. But Babber in turn will be looking for an opportunity, as we are hearing that Ben Hicks has had a major moment out on circuit. What has happened to Ben Hicks? Well, let's find out as we see he's making his way around right now, but that does not look to be a happy car. So this was only moments ago in the run-up towards turns 6 and 7. It comes through 6, and as he makes his way into 7, does he overcook it on the steering? No, he clips the apex curve there. The rear right tyre hits it flush, and as a result, that means that the car is raised and it goes skidding sideways as he returns to the race. But he drops all the way down to P19 and is not having a happy day at the circuit as he goes chasing after Matthew Addy here, and Hicks definitely out of position as they make their way around. But meanwhile, as they make their way across that line, we can see and meanwhile, Landry here on the offensive versus Caruana, and he's going to have the mother of all toes coming down to the Red Poster as they come charging down into turn 4. It's a long run down under, braking Landry on the inside here, Caruana on the outside. Landry squeezes Caruana a little bit further over and says, give me a bit more space, give me a bit more width of apex, please. And Caruana does oblige, but runs wide there and gains the position, and will likely need to give that back as they continue racing. But you can see behind now, Babber and Beck are trying to come in. Beck's backed off, and Babber now comes up into the middle of the pack here and has made his way up into P5 as we see Landry and Caruana go side by side through 6 and 7, and as they make their way into the braking zone here, you can see Landry trying to go deep on the brakes and bring it to the inside line here. But instead what Landry's doing, he's affording Babber the opportunity to come into this battle as we see Beck trying to squeeze his way in, and as we ride on board with what is Enio Babber here into turn number 10, you can see he looks at that move there. What a good gracious me of a lunge there into turn number 10, but not able to find it and simply trying to look threatening in the rear view mirror of Landry and trying to get Landry to make a mistake here. These guys are not keeping it at bay. They are literally releasing the beast very early in this race. We're only 9 minutes in and already the battling is very intense as they make their way up the hill now and head towards the start-finish straight once again. Now as they come roaring up towards that timing line, you can imagine at this point they're all going to calm down because they've all got a sizable gap between one another. It's a couple of attempts, but it's more than enough even in the slipstream. And as they come roaring down towards that timing line, they head down towards turn 1. I don't think we're going to see any moves this time as we come to our end of our ride on board. Hold up a second, it is the case we've got a brief interruption of audio there, or is it the case that Babber is just lifting off to save a little bit of fuel? I think he might have been doing the latter rather than the former. And as they make their way through turn 3, we now look back to the exterior cameras here, but you have to imagine Babber is trying to make that ground as much as he possibly can and can't quite find it at this point in time. But we will wait and see as they make their way down towards turn number 4 once again, coming charging all the way down into turn number 4 here, and we will wait and see if any more moves kick off shortly, but nothing right now. I think all of the drivers just taking a breather, and then I do say that, and then Landry starting to look threatening once again here versus Caruana. It does look as though the Ferrari driver feeling very comfortable in that car versus Caruana, and Caruana, you can see they're just going into the braking zone, having to keep his eyes open for the fact he's not closing the door, he's not shutting off the potential lunge on the inside, and Landry may take it if he gets the opportunity. Meanwhile, as these guys are making their way through turns 9 and up into 10, we can see that further down it is the case that Gus Franken is chasing after what is Peter McDougall right now, the CXR Project Black driver versus the RP Motorsports Pro-Am driver of what is Franken, as they come up into turn number 10 here. No real changes between these guys right now, but what we can see is over the course of the opening 6 for this race, i.e. the opening 10 minutes, the field hasn't spread out too much, and we do have that mandatory pit stop. And you can imagine if you pitted right now from the lead, you'd be coming out somewhere amongst the battle for what is effectively P14 to P22, and that's not a good place to go for the simple reason that you end up coming all the way down the order, as we're hearing that Rick Jansen has had another major moment at turn number 10. But meanwhile, focusing on the here and now, we can see it's Franken versus McDougall as they come roaring across in towards the timing line. And as we look all the way down the start-finish straight here, we can see that's the case that Dougal having to go defensive here into 1 as they come into the centre S's. It's going to be Franken who tries to go around the outside and use the Ferrari's grip and rotation here to his advantage. The BMW no slouch in the handling department, but has a little bit more grunt on the straights. And as they make their way through the left-hander there of what is turn number 3, coming through the Curva de Sol, we can see now he's fallen back as Franken, and instead he's got to worry about James Slates, who's trying to catch up to him as they make their way up towards turn number 4 here. And the two Ferraris will go toe-to-toe. But remember, they are RP Motorsports drivers, the pair of them, or at least we've come to understand they are, with the fact we do have James Slates there, who's also in the Pro-Am, the two teammates and they won't want to impede each other too much here in terms of their practice experience as they make their way into turns 6 and 7, but further back, meanwhile, we can see Stefan Gamble, Rasmussen looking for a move on another Ferrari of Romano as they make their way through 6 and 7, not able to find it this time, but Rasmussen, the Switchback Motorsport driver, our leader in the switch in the amateur class right now. After we saw Addy earlier on, we didn't see it, in fact, it happened off screen, but Addy had a moment. We can see Rasmussen trying to get that move on right now in the rather standard Italian stallion coloured car Ferrari as he makes his way through 9 and into 10. We can see not really gaining at this point in time as he's got Matt Emmons bearing down on him, and Matt Emmons no slouch at the moment, really getting that move on his Deluxe Sim Esports with M&V Esports 24 driver, and as he makes his way all the way round down towards turn number 12, as we butchered the team name and then some, it is the case, he is starting to get a move on his Emmons and putting that pressure on as we now ride on board the BMW M4 coming up the hill through turns 13 and 14 very shortly here, and you have to think that at this point, whilst he's not close enough right now, that Ferrari having the grunt onto the straight here to hold off the BMW, if Emmons is able to close up through sector 2 once again, or sectors 3 and also to a degree 4, because of course we have 5 sectors here rather than just the standard F1 3 sector layout, you can imagine that Emmons will be in an attacking position come the end of this lap. Even more so if Rasmussen gets bunched up behind Romano as they make their way for the centre S, and Rasmussen having a major moment there coming through turn number 2. We just didn't get the power down here, and we can see that Emmons all over the back, but again that Ferrari just so strong in the mid gears in terms of the acceleration out the corner, and it's that confidence that he can hold on as we see Emmons here looks to move on the inside. He tries to feint it in, he's not able to get fully alongside to force a move through, and Rasmussen very aware of that and saying, okay, if you're not fully alongside, I'm just going to simply shut the door because there's no way you're making this move happen, and if you do make it happen, you take the pair of us out as they make their way through 6 and 7 right now. Rasmussen knowing how to play this one, and as they make their way through 7 and up into 8, you can think that I think Emmons is going to have to really send it into one of these heavy hairpins soon, because he hasn't got the ability to close down on the straights as much as he'd like as they make their way through turn number 9 here, and you can see nose to tails we're hearing Rick Jansen has jumped to the pit, our P23 driver not having a good day at the office, as we now see Emmons all over the back here of Wes Rasmussen as they come into 11, and he'll look for the move down into 12 if not onto that start finish straight as they come down now and into 12. Will it be the case he looks at it? No, he waits here, but he's got to get closer than this as they make their way out the corner. He's not close enough to make the move, and you can see he's dropping a couple hundredths coming out the exit of Juncker. He will gain it of course in the slipstream race now, but it takes so long to gain versus that Ferrari, as meanwhile further up the road we can see coming out of turn 3 right now it's Landry versus Caruana. It's kicking off once again here with Landry on the inside, the Canadian versus the Briton, Caruana on the outside, and as they come down to 4 here, it's the case Caruana not going to fight this one. He simply waits and says, okay, well I'll come back at you a little bit later here as they make their way through turn number 5, and we can see already Caruana starting to size up a potential comeback, but he's not close enough to do it, and I don't think he'd dare try and do it around the outside through 6 and 7. Whilst Caruana does definitely have the driving ability to do so, it's going to be one of those cases I think he's wiser to the fact that he's still got 3/4 of the race to go at this point, and there's no need for anything heroic right now as they make their way through turn number 9. Now as they come on through turn 9 and up into 10, we can see Caruana getting the better run out of turn 9, and as they come into the second of 2 heavy braking zone hairpins here, we can see that Caruana just waiting for that opportunity as meanwhile Rasmussen chasing after Matt Emmons, and it is the case that Emmons has got the move done on Rasmussen. Let's take a look back at how it happened. This was in the run out of turn 3 down the Reproposta straight into turn 4, and Emmons this time sending it on the brakes and saying, you know what, I tried it last time, I wasn't close enough, this time I'm much closer and I'm going to go for it. And Rasmussen I think obliging there and recognising, you know what, I'll come back at you a bit later, but Rasmussen has lost the place there to what is Ben Hicks, and Ben Hicks the Pro-Am driver of course who we'd expect to have a little bit more pace in the AMs around him of Matt Emmons and Stefan Gamble. Rasmussen will be now trying to close up as we're hearing Jochen Seeger is going to places. Hicks goes wide there out to Juncker, and as he comes up the hill through 13 and 14, it is the case that Hicks right now, I think just feeling a little bit of pressure here and not having the most comfortable of races as he makes his way up towards that timing line, and Rasmussen will be trying to get on past as he goes all the way around the outside here in towards the braking zone of 1, but you can see not able to gain enough is Rasmussen, as meanwhile we look back up to the leaders, and I can tell you that Tony Verschaft has actually had quite a couple of slow laps by comparison to the drivers behind him, and it is the case that Robert Desunik and also Jason Landry are closed up, and Matt Caruana also in the picture, so our top 4 all coming back together again, and Tony Verschaft really starting to feel a little bit of pain I think over the course of this race, as we're hearing that James Slate has had a major moment there. That's coming in through 4 as he rejoins the circuit, and I think everyone's going to be to the wise of the fact there's a Ferrari that's been wayward. What happened to the driver who's now down in P14? So this was coming down into turn number 4 with his teammate no less, and was there contact between the two of them? I do not think so, as they made their way through the corner, and it was their case that Sledge just simply getting the car over-rotated and the car not wanting to grip the road, and as a result now having to rejoin, and I think he might have put a little bit of additional wear into those rear tyres, but it is the case that right now Sledge has lost quite a bit of time and lost the comfort of being amongst his teammate, and he's now behind Matt Emmons, the leader of the AM class right now, and whilst the Pro I think will come through rather quickly, he's now got more work to do as a result. But meanwhile, as we were saying, just before that happened, we can see Joseph Landry here coming out of nowhere and looking for a move on Robert Dasunik. What an absolute attempt there, but he's not going to be able to get it this time. But Landry is not waiting around here. I'm wondering if he's got a train to catch or something, because he's definitely trying to get a move on. And as they make their way out of 2 into 3 and through down towards 4 now to the Repro Poster, you can see here Landry really going for this, and Robert Dasunik is giving it to him in kind in terms of defending. But Landry definitely trying to make a statement, I think, today. You know what? I may be new to this series, but I am not new to racing on iRacing. I'm not new to racing hard and fair. And as a result, Landry right now making it count and going around the outside through 6 to take P2. But what a sequence there. And who would have thought to come from that far back? But wait for it, of course. Dasunik could look for it here into 8, but he's not able to. Here as we ride on board the gearbox of Landry, right on board this run, you can see how close Dasunik is getting as they make their way out of 9 and up into 10. But now it's the case that the Ferrari's got the 2 Lamborghinis of Dasunik and Caruana behind, and Caruana looks at the inside there into turn 10. It's a brief sniff, but I think it's getting the message through to Dasunik. If you don't get a move on, pal, I will. And as they make their way out of 11 and down towards 12 right now, this is buying Tony Verschaft a little bit of time in order to stay away. But as they make their way out of Junkow corner now, what's Landry going to do here? Because he will be vulnerable. He doesn't have the top end speed versus the Lamborghini Huracans behind it. It's the Ferrari versus the V10 power of that Audi engine inside the Lamborghini as they make their way through the final pair of corners and head onto the start finish straight. And as they come roaring across to complete what is their 12th lap of the circuit and head on to lap number 13, we can see that is the case. Our top 6 are all separated by a total amount of only 3 seconds. That is P1 to P6. You love to see it. And at the back of this pack is Anthony Beck, of course, who is having fun right now in the BMW M4 and just keeping everybody honest, as it's 2 BMWs sandwiching the top 6, and in between them they of course have got the feast that is a Porsche, a Ferrari and 2 Lamborghinis as they all look in towards turn 4 right now, and no change this time round, but it's definitely building up here, and I do think at some point somebody is going to try and go for the move, and then may see a spacing out of this field as we do see Matt Caruana now starting to get ever closer to Dasunik. He looks to move on the inside into 6, but he's not quite there again, and I think just trying to intone the move but not able to put that pressure on enough here. He's trying to get Dasunik to go wide or make a mistake, but Dasunik not phased by it as the Briton comes roaring down the hill now through turn 9 and up towards 10, and as they come all the way up into 10 into the braking zone here, it does look as though that Babbard's now getting a little bit closer, but of course these guys will be protecting their tyres where possible and looking at those fuel gauges as well, and the strategy is going to be so important. And again, whilst I can tell you that this group of 6 drivers have broken away from the rest of the field, if any one of them were to pit right now, they will be coming out in the battles for say P13 and lower, and they will not want that at all. They will want that clear air, and that's why none of them are designed to undercut early in this race. They will all try and go a bit longer for the simple reason they do not have the space to play with right now, as it is a case that pit stop at Interlagos is going to cost them a significant amount of time as they make their way down towards 1 once again, and we can see Landry here getting closer to Verschaft and really bold on those brakes into turn 1. You have to imagine that everybody now is going to be very cautious of the fact as Landry gets it a little bit sideways. They're coming through 2, pushing it to the absolute limit, but over-rolling the car there as he makes his way out of turn 3, and I think that anti-roll bar has been pushed for its effort as they make their way down towards turn 4 right now. We can see that Landry looking for the move here, and he's going to try it, and he's got Verschaft a little bit disturbed. You can see Verschaft there just simply having a little bit of a moment thinking, oh, is Landry going to come for this? I'm going to need to be careful, but Landry hasn't gained, and look who has. It's Dasunik as they make their way out the hill now through 5 and up into 6. Landry defends the inside here. He keeps Verschaft very honest, and Dasunik's not able to find a way through, and this will cause the pack to bunch up once again as they make their way under braking into turn 10. You can see their nose to tail here, and this is brilliant stuff as they make their way on through. But as they continue to come through now, it's Babber who will close up gradually, but I can imagine that Ennio Babber will be trying to back off as they make their way up into turn 10, and Caruana's going to try and go around the outside here to the inside of 11, and this is going to be very very close as they come into 11, but Caruana does make it work. He makes it count and had to be very brave and rely on Dasunik to show him a little bit of additional respect there for him being on the outside, but Dasunik has shown that respect, and now as they make their way out of turn number 12, you can imagine that Caruana will want to close up to the back of Landry, but I think Dasunik is going to have something else to say as they make their way out of 14 and into 15. Meanwhile, at the head of this pack, of course, we've got Verschaft, who's still leading, but he has got Landry over the back of him here, and surely Landry's going to look for the move. He's been very late on the brakes into one. Landry's going to look for it here. He goes for it into one, into the centre S's, and Verschaft is held at bay now. He's made to go wide there, and he will lose momentum, and Jason Landry is now your lead. Oh, and goodness me, Robert Dasunik into the wall, and that car has had a major moment there. Fortunately, not into the wall completely and bouncing off of the water cover to Sol, but it is the case that now we can see behind what is Jason Landry pulling away. Tony Verschaft has got Matt Caruana all over the back of him, and I think with the loss of what was Dasunik, this will now really start to space out this top 6 and turn it into a top 5 that's going to break apart. As we can see here, Verschaft versus Caruana. We will take a look at what happens to Robert Dasunik very shortly. But we can see Matt Caruana now trying to go on the offensive and find a way through as they come all the way through the turn 8 corner and come into 9. And it does look as though nose to tail right now. Verschaft is struggling a little bit versus Caruana. But I think Caruana now is getting a move on. I think he's unleashing the beast that he's been waiting to do. And as they come into 10, Caruana trying to make a move on the inside once again there. And I think of two minds whether to fully commit to it and whether Verschaft would know it's coming as they make the way for 11. He's got to be so careful because whilst the turn 10 hairpin does invite a move on the inside, go too late and the driver ahead of you simply is going to turn into your cogs. They're not going to see you coming until it's too late. They've got to be anticipating your movements, and as they make their way through turn 13 and come around through 14 and 15, we can see it's the case that right now Caruana pulls out the toe briefly before tucking back in here, trying to get the overspeed at the right time. And as they make their way through, we can see Verschaft goes defensive here, making Caruana go all the way round if he wants this. And as they come into the centre S's here into turn 1 under braking, Caruana has to back off for the time being and wait for another opportunity as they come through cover to Sol and head onto the ref Proposta straight here. And as they come down the long stretch right now, you can see that nose to tail once again here. And Tony Verschaft simply holding firm. But it's going to be Caruana who tries briefly to go for the move, but he can't find it. And as they come through the left-hander of 4 right now, Caruana goes a bit wide then. Has to be careful of those track limits running too wide. And also the fact it's down slope off of 4 if you run onto the outside. And as they come up towards 6 and 7, you can see Verschaft holding his ground. But whilst he's holding his ground here and comes through turn number 7, and Caruana's kept at bay for one more lap. I say that, and Caruana looks the mover and he makes Verschaft go deep this time, but Verschaft holds the inside through 9, but he's got to be careful about getting on the power. He's very high on that apex curve of 9, and as they come out, Caruana's going to hold to the outside to inside into 10 here, and with an extended series of moves, Caruana is going to gain P2, and now he's got to try and hold on as they make their way for 11 into Junker corner at turn number 12, and as they come into 12, will it be the case now that Caruana's able to make the breakaway as they have the long run down towards turn 1? I'm going to put my money on yes, it will be the case that Caruana will be able to keep that BMW at bay, but we'll now wait and see as they all make the way through 13, coming through 14 as well, and then up in towards 15. Will they be able to break apart? Verschaft's getting closer. He's inching ever closer as they make the way down, and we can see Caruana defends, and it's Verschaft on the outside here. And as he goes heavy on the brakes, Verschaft's going to commit all the way round here, but he's not going to be able to find it, or is he? He's going to have the grip, and with the grip available in that BMW, he does make it a fight into turn 3, but you can see being on that outside line through turn 3, he has to lift off the throttle, and you see Caruana immediately tucking into the slipstream of Ben Hicks, who's just emerged from the pits there to gain a little bit of additional speed, and we can see Enio Baba now closing up and making the move into turn 4, and Baba capitalising in the number 69 car as he makes his way through 4, and it's the case that Verschaft has lost 2 places whilst battling for the 1 as they make their way around. And let's now take a look back at what happened only moments ago to Robert Dasunik. So it was Robert Dasunik when they were battling, of course, for what was P3 with Matt Caruana as he came out of turn 2. The rear just went a bit too much apex curve of 2. He didn't hit the wall, interestingly enough. It looked like he hit the wall, but in the end, it was just the case that the car spun round and he was able to get under control. A very well caught moment there from Dasunik to avoid it going into the wall, but that has put him all the way down in P8, and now he's got it all to do again. As meanwhile, further down the field, we can see Jochen Siegert here battling with Matt Evans for P15 right now as they go side by side through turn 6 and into into 7, and it's the case the Next Gen Racing orange driver battling with the Luxim at 24 with MV Esports driver, and as they continue to be side by side through 8 and into 9 here, it is the case that Emmons retains the position for now, but they're both not afraid to go side by side through some of the trickiest corners here on the circuit, and we see Seeger going for the move on the inside into 10, and Emmons, they're not expecting that to happen. I don't think there was any contact there, but it was the case that Emmons just did not see that pass coming, and as a result I think he panicked a little bit there and got caught out on the brakes on the exit, as we can see that as a result Emmons has now lost the places. He's dropped a couple of seconds back, but he will come back into this fight, I'm sure, as meanwhile Enio Baba is making the move here versus Matt Caruana coming out to 3, and as they make their way down towards 4 here, it is the case that the Porsche driver here is getting a move on, and you can see it's the case that the 991 driver has just been waiting patiently to go toe-to-toe with these guys. He's been waiting for them to take the life out of their cars, take the life out of the tyres, and now he's going on the offensive of his own as we head towards the halfway point of this race. We're almost there. We've only got one more lap to go before we get to the halfway point, and currently with 17.5 laps completed, it has been anything but predictable, this race. And remember, this is just a pre-season test event. I want to stress, these guys are quote-unquote testing their cars tonight, but they are racing to their fullest here, and they are chomping at the bit to go racing, and they are definitely showing that to us as they make their way around the circuit. And as we can see here, Baba holding on for the time being, as meanwhile we check in with you guys and girls in the chat, and we can see there from what is Billy Fletcher Racing talking about if he's choosing to go in the BMW, he'll be in the same livery as Matt Emmons. And we can see then Elwin Sykes in the Facebook chat saying, come on Stefan Vessels, show that lucky packet Lambo who is boss. And we can also see K-Team saying, do we need the pre-season madness? Can we not just start the season now? Indeed, it is the case that we do have the pre-season madness, but if this is anything to go by, then the season is going to be absolutely gripping. And speaking of gripping, will Matt Caruana have the grip on the tyres here to go for the move into turn 1? No, he thinks about it otherwise. Waits for Baba instead to hold position as they make their way through the centre S's here, and as they head on to the Kelvin del Sol of turn number 3, it is the case that as they come roaring through that left-hander, no ground game from Baba. It's the case Caruana is right there. He's looking for that potential move in the run down towards 4. Will he go for it? However, that is the other question. He doesn't go for it this time, and I think these guys might be starting to turn the wick down slightly for the simple reason they've been battling so hard, and Jason Landry has disappeared off up the road as a result. He's 2.5 seconds clear, we should say, and whilst 2.5 seconds is not much in terms of the pace that these guys are demonstrating, that 2.5 seconds could buy them some comfort as they make their way around. And meanwhile, further down the field, you're hearing that Gus Franken, as we can see here, he's making his way into turn number 4. He's on the inside there versus Romano, and I think these two are teammates as they battle their way through turn 4 and into 5. Of course, no love lost and no points to be gained right now, but as they make their way up the hill here, they're side by side, Franken and Romano, as they come into 6 and 7, and it's the case that Franken trying to go all the way around the outside here. This is brave stuff from the Ferrari driver, but knowing what his machine's capable of, and he's not able to find the move into 8 there, as it's the case that Romano holds on for the time being. Meanwhile, just a little bit further up in the battle for P7 here, you're looking at Andrew Lovesey using P8. He's chasing after Robert De Sunito, and Andrew Lovesey, the Ignium Motorsport driver, is our top driver at the moment, our P1 driver in the Pro Am class as it currently stands. We've had one retirement confirmed to us, that is Rick Jansen, who has retired. He retired 9 laps ago, but as we now come to the halfway point of the race, come the end of this lap, as our drivers go on to their 20th lap of the Interlagos circuit, we can see that Lovesey looking for the move here versus De Sunito. He tries to find it to go round the outside, but De Sunito goes heavy on the brakes and says, there's no way you're trying that on me, not in a million years. And as they make their way into the centre S's right now, we can see that it's Lovesey who, as he comes on through here, not able to gain as much as he would like here, but definitely getting De Sunito on his toes and saying to him, look, I am coming for you, as we hear that Jaco Boshoff is into the pits for his mandatory stop. He's the first of our drivers to take that pit stop, and where will he come out? That will be the big question, because everyone will keep their eyes on him, and also the pace he starts to deliver once he emerges from the pits, and they'll use that as their reference marker, as the prime driver is still in the pits right now. But meanwhile, looking at our race leader here, he's comfortably leading, but he is being reeled in very gradually by Enio Baba, only by a half a tenth a lap, but still that will add up as time goes on. As we can see, he makes his way through turn at number 10 right now, and as he comes through the right into left combination of 10 into 11, feeling comfortable as our Ferrari driver in the lead, as meanwhile Enio Baba behind, doing everything he can right now in order to hold on to that P2, and Matt Caruana falling back a little bit and deciding not to go on as much of an offensive at this point in the race, which I think is sensible, to be fair. I think he's just pacing himself right now, is Matt Caruana, and waiting for that opportunity. And Baba, to be fair, as we saw in the sprint race, it was the case it was contested for the win between Baba and Caruana, and Baba took it by holding on at the very last moment in the run to the finish line, but we can see these two are coming back together. as they make their way into turn number 1. Now, as they come through the left into right combination here, it is the situation that we're hearing that Robert Dasunik has come into the pits as well, as Jakubosov has emerged from the pits in last place. Last of our runners, and he's come out clear of any major traffic. So it is that situation right now where the pit stops are starting to pile in, and I do think that a number of other drivers will be considering their pit stops very soon. But in this battle for the lead, you would imagine that Landry right now does have the advantage where he can react to the drivers behind him. He doesn't have to try and come up with a strategy on the spot. Instead, he can just wait and see when the guys behind do pit, as we're looking at P2 and P3 chasing after him, of course. And then further down we can see that Beck, meanwhile, now chasing after Tony Verschaft as we ride on board with Anthony Beck as he makes his way through turn 8 and up into 9. This BMW having been put through the paces right now, but you had to say the Britain and Beck doing a stellar job chasing after Tony Verschaft right now, and light for light machinery as well. And as they come into the right hander of turn 10, it does look as though Verschaft looking a bit more composed now as things settle down. But meanwhile, ahead we go from this to the battle between Caruana and Baba, and it is the case that Caruana all over the back of Ennio Baba as they make the way out of Juncal corner, and we ride on board here with the Porsche driver as they make the way through 13 and 14, and as they come through the left-hander of 14, one more corner to go before they conclude this lap. Will we see the Lamborghini driver go for the move hill? Will we see one of them duck into the pits? We'll wait to see. Neither of them go into the pits here, and Caruana has fallen back a little bit, but as they come up towards turn 1 here, we come into that braking zone. There's no change once again, but Caruana is mounting that pressure right now as we get a face full of Huracan coming down through the center S, and as they make their way through Curva del Sol, we can see it's the situation right now where Caruana is looming large. He's threatening constantly, as this is the closest battle on circuit right now, and as they come roaring down towards turn number 4, will Caruana look for the move this time? No, he decides to stay on the racing line. He waits patiently, and we can see it's one of those situations whereby he is starting to build that pressure up once again, trying to see where Baba may make a mistake, where he may be weak, where he's vulnerable. That's what Caruana likes to do. He likes to size up his opponent before finding the right place to go for that all-important move that puts them down a position, as we're hearing that James Slits has had a major moment out on circuit. I'm not sure where this was, but let's take a look back. So this was only a moment ago as the RP Motorsports group then made their way for the center S's, and Sleds got a little bit high on the turn 1 apex, then coming through turn 2 simply cut 2 into the apex of 2 and the rear of the car unsettled, and then he had to get it back together, but he caught it very well, to be fair, avoided it going into the wall. A nice catch by the driver as the RP Motorsports Pro Enduro now continues on his way, but he has lost some time, and as a result now will be feeling the need to catch back up to Franken very soon. As meanwhile, looking back to that battle for P2, we can now see it's the case that Caruana versus Baba as they come roaring up towards turn 15 here, coming to the end of their current lap, coming to the end of lap 22. Caruana's on the inside here. Baba goes to the outside. They're side by side in the run down towards 1. But I think Baba here's decides, you know what, I'm just going to let it go and come back later rather than squabble and fight over this, because the two of them are not gaining on Landry right now. Landry has extended his lead by a couple of attempts. It's up to 2.8 seconds now compared to Caruana and Baba, and the pace being set by Jason Landry right now is consistent in the mid to high 32s. Meanwhile, Caruana and Baba, they're pretty similar in terms of pace, but of course with their little tidbits of fighting, it does mean that they lose a bit of time as they make their way around through turns 4 and 5. Meanwhile, further down the order, I can tell you that it's the case that Edward Lack has just passed Matthew Addy for P13. The Pro-Am driver versus the Am driver has made the pass as they make their way down towards turn number 1 here, and a bit further up the road, Gus Franken has got past what is hold up a second. We have got a car that's had a run-off there at turn 1, I think, as we are hearing that James Slates has dropped down behind your Consiga, who's making a good number of places, and we can see now that Slates in an uncomfortable position where he's got a Pro-Am and also an Am trying to come through versus him as a Pro driver, and he won't want to yield to these guys if he can afford it as they make their way into turn number 4 here. But you can see Addy getting a little bit impatient, I would say, and actually thinking he's got a bit more pace he can unleash. He'd love to go chasing after Jochen Seeger, who is only the best part of what is about 2 seconds up the road from him right now. He can see the leader of the Am class, i.e. the class that he's in, but he can't find a way to clear the two guys who are in the way, and everybody being out of position here, it would seem, well, particularly the Pro-Am and also the Pro are out of position, as we see Edward Lack trying to go for the move. He's not able to find it for the time being as they make their way out to 9 up into 10, and we can see it's the case that Slates is not going to defend into 10, and Lack goes for the move here. He sees the doors open, he sends it, and as they make their way out of 10 and into 11, it is the case that the Lamborghini driver has just got ahead, as we can see that Stets has to back off the throttle very slightly through into 11 to avoid the contact, and as they make their way right now into left-hander of Junkao at turn 12, it's the case that you can see it's just able to walk off into the distance. He's not able to feel that pressure bearing down on him as they make their way through that left-hander of turn 13, 14, and now come up into 15. As they come running across that timing line, we look back up towards our leaders right now, particularly the battle for P4. And as we take a quick sip of water, this is Anthony Beck at the rear of your picture, battling with Tony Verschaft at the head of your picture, and these two have been getting closer together lap after lap as Verschaft gets it very wrong. And we can see there with cat-like reflexes, Beck avoiding the wayward Verschaft, who's rejoining across the circuit onto turn 9 right now. But Tony Verschaft with just a little moment there and losing the rear end at the last and the worst possible time. Let's take a look back at how it happened. So he just raised it too high on the apex curve there at turn 7, but how Beck did not go into the shaft, well, only he will know. That was a very, very impressive amount of commitment into the corner, but the shaft simply making a mistake under the pressure there, with only now 23 minutes of racing to go, but yet to pit are our top 5, indeed our top 6, as we do take a brief breather. And as they continue to make their way around the circuit, and we're going to see Tony Verschaft does not come into the pits here. He stays out, despite the fact of that little moment. And we can see Romano, meanwhile, chasing after his teammate once again. Here's the RP Motorsports Pro driver chasing after what is Gus Franklin, I should say, not Franklin. And as they make their way out to turn 12 through 13 up into 14, we can see it's the case that the two RP Motorsports drivers, I think they've been enjoying this little inter-team battle. And as they make their way up towards the timeline here, we can see Franklin on the inside defending versus his Belgian teammate. As they make their way down towards turn 1 into the heavy braking zone, they go once again, and Franklin just simply holds that inside line here and defends as hard as he possibly can, as Matthew Addy is into the pits. And meanwhile, further down the road, we see Robert Dasunik here coming from the inside versus Matt Emmons, and of course Matt Emmons in the AM class versus the pro driver Dasunik, not battling this one, deciding just to simply stay out the way and use Dasunik as a pace car down the Reproposta straight here, picking up a bit of a distant tow, and that will help him considerably as they make the way down. As we meanwhile see Stefan Vessels is continuing to hold on there with the Lamborghini Huracan. He has had a couple more moments in this car, but it all seems to be okay. Seems to have settled down for the time being as he makes his way through the left-hander of turn number 3. But meanwhile, as he makes his way on through here, we do see Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen making his way through turn number 3 here, and Matthew Addy coming out of the pits and made his pit stop. It will be the case that right now Matthew Addy will be thinking to himself, okay, well, I've been the first to pull the trigger in terms of the pit stops out of the battle for the lead of the AM class. Now can he make this work? It's not ideal, of course, with the fact that he does have the traffic as Rasmussen only 1.6 seconds up the road, but he'll be hoping that Rasmussen's on similar pace to him, as we're hearing that Anthony Beck and Andrew Lovesey have both come into the pits. So we are starting to see all of those pit stops come along, as meanwhile, looking a bit further up, we can see Matt Emmons all over the back of Dasunik right now as they make their way out Junkao corner here, and Emmons will love this for the simple reason that he will get a massive tow down towards turn 1, and this will help out the BMW even more as he continues to try and chase down Jochen, who is the best part of what is about 5 seconds up the road from him, as Lovesey into the pits right now. And we see that Lovesey is now starting to make his way out of the pits, just looking out my commentary box window. But meanwhile, we can see Matt Emmons here chasing after Robert Dasunik and just simply using Dasunik to give him the pace he needs to hunt down the other drivers in the AM class ahead of him. But further up from these guys, we've got Ed Lack here, who is on the back of the AM leader of Jochen here, and he's got to try and navigate a very difficult situation where the Pro-Am driver in a different class will feel he's got the greater pace compared to the German in the AM class, but he's got to find a way to make the pass. That is the challenge he faces as he makes his way then through turn 5 and up towards 6. And you can see Jochen there, I think, just wary of the fact he has someone in his rear view mirror, and I think he will at some point perhaps let it go in terms of the move. He'll let Ed Lack take the position off of him because they're not fighting for place, albeit this isn't in the championship, to be fair, so they can battle if they want. And we can see that Seegert versus Lack there, Lack going for the move and Seegert defending on the inside in turn 9. And I think it's the case they're going to enjoy the battling more than anything, as we are hearing that Robert Dasunik has had a major moment and let Matt Emmons essentially up a position. Andrew Lovesey's gained a position. What happened to the Dutchman? So coming up through 6 and into 7 here, nicely composed through 7, and as he comes into 8, does the rear just go under braking? It does indeed. The rear just simply locked up, and you could see that it did not want to go through the corner, and when the car did rotate, it gave him too much rotation all in one fitting, and as a result, it's the case Robert Dasunik has now dropped down to P15, and Matt Evans and Andrew Lovesley have come through. As we can see behind, we do have that, I think a lap down is Walmsley, who's making his way around the circuit right now. Andy Walmsley here, who is a lap down, but continuing on, soldiering on here is the AM driver and building up all the experience he can in that Ferrari 488. As the field has opened up a little bit now, we haven't got too many close battles on circuit between drivers within the same class, alternatively in different classes, but we'll wait to see, of course, because we still do have 19 minutes, and we will be expecting those pit stops to throw a big spanner in the works with regards to drivers' races. We check in with you guys and girls in the chat, and we can see that in the Twitch chat, Elwyn Sykes enjoying the racing, and they've got their fingers up in support of the fantastic racing, doing the sign of the horns, I believe, the rock on sign, as we can see that whilst our drivers continue to rock on to the tune of their engines in the GT3 class here, it is the case that Andrew Lovesley, a little bit further up the road, is starting to gain on Matt Evans, as we're hearing that Matthew Addy has had a moment coming down through turn 2. I think it's going to be another case of too much apex curve. We ride on board this time with Matthew Addy and see what happened. The SVPMR driver coming through 1, he's gone a bit wider, and as he's cut into 2, he's put the right hand wheels too high on the grass on the apex, and it is the case the car has been released and he has rejoined now. I think he might have just got it stopped before it tapped the wall, but Addy not having a good day at the races after making his pit stop. So right now, the time he was gaining by running in that clear air and feeling comfortable, he has lost through that one moment, and it is the situation now where Addy will have to go charging after that pace. As we can see that Jochen Seeger, who has taken his pit stop, has got back ahead of Addy. So Addy was ahead of Jochen Seeger coming out of the pits when they both came out of the pits, but it is the case that Jochen Seeger having made his pit stop as well, and Addy making that mistake. Now Addy has lost that advantage, as we see that Franken and also Lacker into the pits, Sleds and also Emmons are into the pits. We've got a lot more pit stops coming up, as Phil McDougall has come out of the pits as well, and as he makes his way out now, it is the case that the CXR Project Black driver here will come roaring out of the pits as rapidly as possible. He'll want to come out ahead of what is Robert Dasunik here as he makes his way out. And he wants to go chasing after Andrew Lovesley, who's just up the road. Lovesley, of course, having already made his pit stop, as we come to understand it. And as they make their way down into turn number 4 here, it's that situation whereby right now McDougall doing everything he can to chase after Lovesley, who's only the best part of 5 seconds up the road from him. But meanwhile, with all this going on, it is the situation right now that everybody's pit stops are starting to come in. And speaking of one driver who we haven't talked about for a while, Lamont Wedder, we can see here the privateer in the Porsche 991 as he makes his way through turn number 12 through Junkow corner. Had a little bit of a moment only moments ago. Let's take a look at what happened. So making his way down towards what was turn number 4 here, and as he came into the left-hander of 4, does the rear end simply go? It does. The rear end just simply locks up and says no. That's very unfortunate for the Dutchman, but I think it's one of those learning experiences right now, and he'll continue on. He is a lap down on our leaders in P19, but he's soldiering on all the same, as we're hearing that Jaco Boshoff has retired the car as well, so we now are down to 21 of our 23 starters in this feature race. As we see that Tony Verschaft is coming out of the pits now, X in the pits after making his pit stop, so he will be coming out in what is, we believe, P5, as Jean-Louis Deschamps is still making his way down through the CNRS, so it's not going to be a case that Deschamps is able to gain on Tony Verschaft, and Verschaft having cleared his pit stop, as has Jean-Louis Deschamps, is going to be the case that Jean-Louis now go chasing after the Dutchman Ultimate Challenge BE driver as he makes his way down towards turn number 4 for what is for him the 29th time of asking. But meanwhile, up front, having made his pit stop, there's Jason Landry, who's dropped down to P2, and Matt Caruana finally leading this race. As we see, that's Matthew Addy on the grass there, coming through what was, I believe, turn 12. In fact, that was Stefan Vessels. In fact, I don't think that was Matthew Addy. My apologies for the confusion, but that was, well, no, Stefan Vessels has had a moment. Matthew Addy also had a moment. Now, that was Addy we saw, but Vessels has just had a moment of his own at turn 10, and he's rejoined the racing right now. But Matt Caruana, who now in clear air, he's come into the pits here, so this is critical. Caruana's in. Where is Jason Landry in all of this? Well, Landry, meanwhile, is making his way out of the final corners and heading up towards the timing line here. So as he makes his way around right now and comes roaring through what is the final corner to go on to another lap, Matt Caruana is in the pits, and in fact, he started to make his way into the pit exit right now. We see Caruana leaving the pits. This is going to be quite close, but I think Landry's going to hold on. As we see, they've got Ben Hicks spun through the centre S's at turn turn 1. And as they make their way around, we can see Landry here. He's going to be coming out just behind Caruana. Caruana has gained by staying out there a little bit longer, and now it's a drag race down towards 4. Caruana's going to have the inside here, and this is for the lead. They've both made their pit stops, and we can see it's the case that Landry has lost out and has now got to do it all on circuit. I think he will have been hoping that he would have been able to simply retake the lead and run off into the distance or defend if he needed, but with 14 minutes to go, it is Caruana who, through strategy and running a little bit longer on his opening stint, has jumped into the lead, and Enio Baba is just behind these guys, only 2 seconds back and chasing after them with aplomb. So right now you can imagine that Landry will go on the offensive as soon as possible whilst he's still got the tyres hot, and Caruana's got to get those tyres back up to temperature, assuming he hasn't changed his tyres here. But these guys will be going tooth and nail to the finish now with only 14 minutes remaining. But a good strategic call from Caruana, and can he make that strategy now play off as they make the way through 11 and down into 12? Meanwhile, further back, we can see in the battle for P11, once again, it's the RP Motorsports drivers of what is Romano versus Franken. As we can see, Romano at the rear of these two, Franken at the front, battling for that P11 once again here. They are coming together gradually as they make the way up towards turn number 6, as they come charging up the hill and into the double right-hand sequence. But meanwhile, as they come through there, we look back up towards our leaders here who come down into 1, and we do know that Landry is the master of the dark arts of breaking very late in that Ferrari into turn 1, but he's not close enough this time. And I think what Caruana has on his side here is the fact that he has just a little bit more pace by comparison over the course of the entire lap, but Landry's not going to let him go if he can afford it. I think the Canadian may already be aware of the fact that Caruana might have the 1 lap pace advantage, and so he will instead try to get that move lined up and go for it into 1 if he can, because he's got so much confidence on the brakes in that Ferrari. He just seems to have much stronger brakes by comparison with everyone else, but that's his confidence. As they make their way into turn 6 and 7 right now, you can see he's falling back a little bit through the double right hand sequence with the dirty air that just cost him a bit of front downforce as they make their way into the turn 8 hairpin. We are hearing, by the way, that Lucas Romano has had a moment out on circuit, which has seen him drop down to P12 as we see the battles continue on here. And as the battle for the lead makes its way into turn 10 right now, we can see Landry looking for a move there and catching Caruana out. I think Caruana was going a little bit deep, but Landry going for it from a distance and just simply saying to Caruana, look, my car's coming, you don't need to worry about your braking zone. And Caruana being caught unawares by that one, as we see the Canadian now come roaring up the hill. We ride on board here with Landry as he comes out the final corner, and as they make their way through 13 and 14 and 15, of course, these left-hand kinks, which aren't really corners in terms of braking corners, we can see that it's the case that Landry is right there in the toe. This is where he loves to be. He loves to be very close. We see Caruana there deflecting to the pit lane, but we can see as they make their way down in towards turn 1, Caruana has to go as wide as possible here and look for the cutback, make Landry go on that tight line, but Landry is not fazed by Caruana and takes the position here. But can he now hold it, as Caruana, I'm sure, will revel in the prospect of battling with the race leader here and battling for the lead over the remaining 11 minutes as they make their way down the Repro Posta. Now as they come down to the braking zone for turn 4, no change at the moment here from the two of them, but you can see Caruana already getting closer. He's starting to inch forward, and I think he thinks, okay, Landry, we can both play this game of intimidating one another. We can both play this game of being right there on one another's backsides, and we know how close Caruana can run. He ran very close to the back of Billy Fletcher in Season 1 through the Nürburgring on the GP Strecker, but as we can see right now, then coming up into turn 8, and Landry not taking any quarters, not taking any chances, defending into 8. He knows what Caruana can do. He's aware of it. He's probably been watching back the videotapes as they make their way through 9 and up into 10, and this is where Caruana will look for the potential cutback move so he can get the run into 12 and then go on the full offensive down through 12 and up into 15. And as they come through 11, he's sizing up Landry very well here as Caruana gets closer and closer into the braking zone for Junção. They go, and you see Caruana all over the back as we now ride on board with the Huracan driver here. We can hear all 10 cylinders of the V10 Lamborghini absolutely roaring, and as they make their way for the left-hander at turn number 14, it's only one more kink before they come charging into the braking zone for turn number 1. As they make their way to that timeline, Landry's going to defend to the inside here. Caruana's going to squeeze him as close to the wall, and Landry at this point decides, okay, I'm going to hold that inside line. Caruana's going to try and come all the way round. They're still side by side into the turn 2, and as they come through the centre S here, we can see through Curva del Sol they go, and Caruana cannot close the door as Landry's still there, and that Ferrari just has so much grip about available to it, and Landry has so much confidence as they make their way down towards 4. But you can see Caruana, no slouch on the brakes in the Huracan. He knows his machine, and as they make their way through, Caruana from quite a way back there goes to the move and makes it work. But look at this now, Enio Baba has closed up as well. The top 3 battling for position here, and this is going to go for the final 10 minutes, I'm sure, as they make the way up the hill. It's now Caruana leading, but you have to imagine that Landry and Baba will both have something to say about that one as they make their way up into turn 8. Well, whilst this has been happening, I can tell you that Matt Emmons right now is catching up to the back of a pack of drivers. We've got the back marker there, Walmsley, who has dropped behind, of course, because he is a lap down, so giving way to blue flags. But meanwhile, Matt Emmons, the leader of the AM class, will be looking to bring home a win here as they make their way through turn number 3. And you can see he's all over the back of Franken as Romano just ahead. And meanwhile, we are also hearing that as they make their way all the way down towards turn number 4, Phil McDougall's had a moment. But meanwhile, we can see that it's going to be Emmons on the inside of Franken here. And I think considering about going for the move, but Franken holding firm there on the outside as they make their way through what is turns 4 and 5 and head up towards 6. And as they come charging out the corner, this battle calms down as we are hearing that James Sletz has had a bit of a difficult time recently, and he's getting that car back up to speed. Is the RP Motorsports Pro-Am driver as he now makes his way down towards what is turn number 12 as he comes roaring down the hill. But meanwhile, backing up towards the leaders, we can see as they come through turn number 3 this time around, it is the situation where Caruana has got a face full of Landry in his rearview mirror, and as they come all the way down towards turn number 4, they've now got 8 minutes to go, and Landry looks to move. He cuts back to the outside with Caruana trying to squeeze the doors shut on the inside here, and Landry's now taking the approach of, okay, Caruana, I'm going to make you go as tight and as defensive into every corner, and I will switch to the outside at the last possible moment to try and make you take that tight line and go deep on the brakes. But Caruana knows this as he goes a bit deep, and as they come through 6 and 7 up into 8 here, Landry's looking on the inside, but Caruana's got the grip there, he's got the confidence in the Huracan, but he goes a bit deep to defend into 9, and he backs the drivers up now. He tries to back what is Landry up into Baba, but Baba's not close enough to get involved in this battle, and that's the problem right now for Caruana. He needs Baba to get into this fight, and you can see Landry trying to go to the inside, outside into 11 here, but he hasn't got the overspeed coming out of 10 to really force the move, and as they make their way down into 12, once again Caruana will be leading in the run up towards the start finish line here. He can use, of course, the straight line speed of that Lamborghini to keep him safe, but you can see that Landry is not giving this one up, and Enio Baba right now I think is waiting. I think what the Porsche driver recognises is that Caruana is trying to back Landry into him, and by doing so, of course, what it will do is cause the two of them to battle over P2, and Landry right now is looking for the move for the lead once again. He's made to go to the outside into turn 1. He's very close there, and as they come down into 2, he's not quite able to get it as they now come into 3, but this battle continues. They make their way through 3, and as they come roaring through 3 down towards the Reproposta into turn 4, it's now a case that only 6.5 minutes remain, and it's almost as if they're racing for the season finale right now, and we haven't even started the season as we see Enio Baba's getting a bit close on the brake into the back of Landry now. I think the Porsche drivers recognising, okay, if they're not going to take one another out, I've now got to make a move. I've got to get a bit closer and put some pressure on Landry to either go all in versus Caruana, alternatively make a mistake, and that is the patience game that Baba's been playing right now, but that patience will wear thin as time goes on. He's running out of time as Baba to get involved in this battle for the lead. He's got 6 minutes to go, plus the lap that the timer comes down on, but you can see as they make their way through, and I'm hearing that Robert Dasunik has jumped to the pits after a major moment. This battle for the lead could not be closer as they make their way through turn 10 and into 11. And as they come all the way down the hill once again, we do have to briefly jump away here to tell you that Matt Emmons has passed what is Gus Franken as they make their way down towards turn number 4. Down the Reproposta straight they go, and Gus Franken's going to come back at the BMW driver here. He's not close enough to look for the move. But meanwhile, Landry, well, it's a case that Landry has gone for the move there into turn 12. And as they make their drag race down the start-finish straight now, this is going to be a very interesting change in dynamic because Landry's found a way to get on the inside of Caruana, clearly into Juncal corner, and as they make their way into 1 this time, they are now onto lap number 36. They've got approximately 3 to 4 more laps to go, and as they come through 2 and into 3, Landry there with an unexpected move for the lead, and Caruana has dropped back considerably here. Has a chink in the armour of Caruana been found? And if it has, let's take a look at it very shortly, but not before we wait and see if Baba tries to make the move into 4. He doesn't. He waits patiently. So this was the move for the lead. And it was essentially the move for the lead was the drag race out of turn 12. I think Caruana may have made a mistake on corner exit there, because for Landry to be this close coming out of 12, that's got to have been a mistake from Caruana. And Landry will take that and say, thank you very much, good sir. I'm now going to roll with that as we see the three of them make their way through turn number 8 once again. But they are very close together, of course, at this point in the race, as we are hearing that is the case that Ben Hicks, I think, has retired the car, as has Robert DeSunic. We've lost 4 of our starters. We're now down to 19 drivers remaining, and it's the case that Andy Wolsey is holding on to last of the running positions. Meanwhile, I can tell you in the Pro-Am category, it's Andrew Lovesley who's currently leading and chasing after Jean-Louis Deschamps. Lovesley leading by 14.5 seconds. And meanwhile, it is the case in the Am category. Matt Emmons right now is leading that category by 4.2 seconds over Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen. Rasmussen a little bit further back and chasing after Emmons. But I don't think he's going to have enough time of day to close it down come the very end as he makes his way through turn 5 and up towards 6. And what that does mean, ladies and gentlemen, I think the closest battle you're going to see on circuit for the rest of tonight's feature race, with now only 3.5 minutes to go once they come out of the Centre S, it will be the battle for the overall lead and the battle for the lead in the Pro class. It's being led by Landry here, but Caruana is closing once again. I think Caruana had a little moment that's perturbed him, but he's calmed it down, and you can see now the tactics these two are employing. They're both using the same tactics against one another in terms of trying to squeeze one another to those insides, making the lead driver take a very defensive line and perhaps overstep it on the brakes. But Baba has fallen back as a result. He's not there enough, and as they make their way into turn 6, we can see it's the case that right now Landry just simply looks so composed here and just able to hold so much rotation through the corners. And this is phenomenal stuff from Landry as he makes his way down into 9 right now. And Caruana really pushing the ticket here, trying to book it and trying to look for a move, trying to look for a way in, as we're hearing that Matt Evans has been passed by Gus Franken for what was the P11. But of course, that's not a change in place in the class. As meanwhile, our leaders make their way through turn 11 once again here. They come towards the end of the lap after this one. They've got 2 more laps to go. And as they come through the left-hander Juncal, this is as close as Caruana's ever going to want to be to the back of that Ferrari, as they make their way up the hill through 13 into 14 and now head all the way round down and into 15 before coming across that timeline to go onto the penultimate lap here. And as they come across that timeline with only 2 minutes to go, 2 more laps remaining, we can see it's the case that Landry's got to go defensive, but Caruana goes from very far back here, and Landry decides to go outside to inside here, seeing that Caruana was coming like a spear. And as they make their way through 3, it's the case that Caruana is back into the lead, but Landry now will look at making the return move on the final lap. He is being patient, is Landry, as we can see already. He's getting close to the back of Caruana. Caruana coming off the racing line briefly as Jean-Louis Deschamps is into the pits. A very late pit stop. I wonder if he's underfueled that car, but Deschamps' race has had a very late and unexpected turn. He's already made 1 pit stop, I can tell you that. But meanwhile, whilst it's the case that we wonder about what happened to Deschamps, the wonder will be who's going to be the winner of this race. Will it be the Canadian and Landry, or will it be the Briton of Caruana, or will Baba close up on the final laps, which we're on the penultimate lap right now? And as they make their way around, we can hear that Jean-Louis Deschamps is still in the pits. He's emerging from the pits right now. I think it is just to take on some additional fuel. It's the case he may have underfueled, which is a disaster for Deschamps as they make their way through what is turn number 10 here. Fantastic driving from all the drivers as they come roaring through turn number 11 right now. And I can tell you that Jean-Louis Deschamps has come out just a little bit behind Romano right now. He's come down in P10 as we see a bit further back Matt Emmons here chasing after Franken, who's come past him, and Rasmussen there also in the picture closing up, and we will keep our eyes on that on the final lap. But as our leaders now come out of the final set of corners to go on to the final lap of this 1 hour race, they come across that timeline. The white flag is out. We can see that Baba's into the pits, so Baba did not have enough fuel, and that's why he was falling back. But Landry's immediately gone for it into turn 1. He's gone on the offensive, but they're side by side through the centre S, so you can see Landry just did not have enough of the intimidation factor there, and Caruana put his foot in it, decided I'm going to hold that inside line to 2, but now they're neck and neck coming out of 3. And as they make their way down towards 4 in the Reproposta straight, Landry's got what he's wanted. He's got that inside line into 4 and under braking here. Caruana's going to try and go all the way round, and Caruana, he's gone wide and he's gone off the circuit. And as he makes his way back on at this point, I think Landry's going to be thinking, well, that was only made because you ran wide, but they'll settle it after the race, of course, if it's not done on track. And as they make their way through 6 and 7 and head up towards 8, Landry's looming very large as as they make the way into 8, but he's not close enough here to go for the move, as we're hearing that Lovesey has had a moment. Andrew Lovesey down in P6, but he's safe for the time being versus McDougall in the Pro-Am class. But as they make the way out to 9 and up into 10, Landry is on the offensive and trying to find a way through. He's not got long left to do this. He's only really got one more corner in which to try and force the move, or force the start of the move, and it will be at turn 12. But look how far back he is. This is not happening surely now, unless he can have the mother of all runs out Juncal corner. He's close. He's in with 3 tenths, but the Huracan's going to have the speed on this straight. I don't think there's enough time of day. We'll wait and see. They've been battling over this position for the best part of half an hour, and as they make their way to the checkered flag, it is going to be Matt Caruana from the United Kingdom who takes the win ahead of Jason Landry, and behind it will be a surprise P3 for Anthony Beck, who, after seeing Baba come into the pit, Beck will take that P3 and be very happy, and we can see Tony Verschaft in the end in P4, followed by what is Ennio Baba in P5, who just in the end brings it home happily. And then it will be Andrew Lovesey, the next of our drivers, to complete their race on the lead lap. Lovesey will bring home the win in the Pro-Am class, as we've seen all of our Pro drives come through. But Andrew Lovesey, with a brilliant drive, takes home the win for the Ignium Motorsports team. And then it will be Phil McDougall, who, making his way across that timing line there, we can see in the BMW, with alongside him, and that is James Slitz, who is a lap down. And then it will be Ed Lack, who comes across P3 in the Pro-Am class here. A great drive from Lack. And then we're going to have Lucas Romano in P4 in the Pro-Am class, P9 overall, as he makes his way across the line. Jean-Louis Deschamps, I think, has run out of fuel right at the checker flag, so it will be Stefan Gamberg versus Rasmussen who brings home the win in the AM class with a very surprised late run. I think Matt Evans has had a moment out on circuit. You can see it comes home in P2 in the AM class, and Matthew Addy, as he makes his way out of the final set of corners here, he will be our last finisher on the lead lap. I think Matt Evans has had a technical issue, or something's gone wrong for Matt Evans right at the end, but we are going to see it'll be Matthew Addy who comes home in P3 in the AM class, following behind Jochen Seeger and Stefan Gamberg Rasmussen, as he comes across the line here to take the checker flag, the last driver to do so. But what a brilliant race from all of our drivers, and right on the border of, well, I would say something more towards a season finale rather than a pre-season test event, but brilliant racing. And you have to imagine this has set the tempo very, very well for the upcoming rest of the pre-season test events, and also the races in the season, as we are hearing that Matt Evans ran out of fuel with 5 corners to go, and that is a horrific end to a race that was controlled so well by the Lux Sim with M&V Esports driver. But it's the way it goes, and I'm sure he will learn from it, as we will be back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, to bring you the wrap up from tonight. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that concludes our opening pre-season test event for Season 2 of the NXTGEN Racing iRacing GT3 Championship. And my goodness, if that is a pre-season test event, and that's the first of our 3 pre-season test events, you can imagine we have got plenty more action ahead before we even bring down the flag to go racing for real and go racing for the all-important championship points. But that was absolutely fantastic racing up and down the field. And if you would like to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community, why not check us out at our official website, that is nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, on the official NXTGEN Racing Facebook group, if you go to facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. Also, a big thank you to our partners, Apex Racing Academy, our primary partner for this series in terms of ApexRacingAC.com, who have been supporting us and will be supporting us throughout. And also a shout out there to Next Level Racing, who will be supporting Lobby 2 alongside Coach Dave Academy, it should be said. But from today, we now have to look forward to next time, and that is we will be heading to the Nürburgring, and I do believe in the next pre-season test on Wednesday the 3rd of November 2021, it will be the Nürburgring Nordschleife combined. It will be the full 24-hour circuit at which we can expect the test event to be held at least that's what I've been informed. I'll wait for confirmation, but that's what I'm putting out there right now, that it is going to be the full Nürburgring Nordschleife circuit, that 24-hour endurance circuit that everybody loves and is the ultimate challenge, and you can expect plenty more drama and dramatics there. But whilst we're waiting for that, of course, we've also got to take a moment to say that if you have enjoyed what you've been watching tonight and you are an avid iRacer and thinking, how can I potentially sign up? We still do have plenty of spaces available in one of our 2 lobbies, and that is going to be a case that if you do want to sign up, here are all the details in terms of what you can expect. Everything will kick off on the 17th of November. There will be 12 rounds over the championship, which will start off in the midpoint of November and wrap up in the early portion of 2022 with the Christmas break, of course. All races will be starting at what is 8 o'clock in the evening, British Summer Time currently, but that will translate into Greenwich Mean Time or UTC once we have the daylight saving hours go back. There will be the 3 classes, Pro, Pro-Am and Am. There will be prizes and trophies up for grabs, and it's all of this racing, all of it. The sprint races, the qualifying sessions and the feature races over the 12 rounds can be all yours to take part in for only £20. Cracking price, and that is just a pre-season test event, and you can imagine what it's going to be like when we do go racing officially. And you can see all the car choices on the right hand side there. We've got the Audi R8 LMS, we've got the BMW M4 GT3, we've got the Ford GT40, the Ferrari 488, the Lamborghini Huracan, we've also got the Mercedes-Benz SLS with the McLaren MP4 12C and the Porsche 911 GT3 991 racing machine. You wouldn't want to miss it, so why not sign up today? And if you're wondering about the calendar for the official season, we will be starting off at Daytona Road Course, I should say, rather than Race Course. We'll go into Sebring, we're going to Road Atlanta. That's our American races before heading to the United Kingdom for Silverstone. We go to the Hungaroring, Le Mans, Red Bull Ring, Spa-Francorchamps, Zolder, Monza, Twin Ring Motegi, and then we wrap up in Australia at Mount Panorama Raceway, or in simple English, Bathurst, the one circuit which will claim every single car if you're pushed to the limit. That's what we've got to look forward to in terms of the official season. But before we get there, as I say, next week we'll be back for the Nürburgring for the second pre-season test, and it will be at the 24-hour circuit. You won't want to miss it. But until then, it's goodbye from us at NXTGEN Racing. I have been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And remember, until next time, to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.